you know, a little bit different in terms of their coloring and what they're really, like, supposed to be made out of. However, the enemies and moving along them and jumping around them remains the same. Now, as we continue on, stage number 5 and 6 will change this format up a little bit. We're going to have a whole water-filled stage in stage number 5, and then we're going to have an ice level in stage number 6, which can be really tricky in navigating, obviously with the traction that you no longer are going to have while moving along ice platforms. Now, stage number 4 is definitely one of the more annoying in terms of the maze setup. It's a giant sewer system, as you can see, once you actually get into the stage, and locating direct path to the boss level, or boss area, is definitely annoying. This is one of those ones that may take you a little while, especially on your first or even second attempts of making it through this level, to locate that room. And there are a lot of enemies, and unfortunately my health is pretty low at the moment, trying to take them out as much as possible. Now, when you do get the 0 power, you still are alive for one last hit, so I do need health as soon as possible. At least for this moment right now, some of the enemies I can pretty easily dodge. Hopefully one of them will give me a power. There we go, at least one finally gave me a power. Now here's where hover comes in again. As you saw, I had to hover up to this platform in order to continue on in the level. Definitely another one of those times where hover is absolutely necessary to progress. Taking a bunch of damage, but also killing the enemies, and they are dropping little bits of health. However, when you get to this giant ladder, you want to jump out of your vehicle and climb up it, and that's going to lead us to our next top-down level in stage number 4. Now, stage number 4, while not necessarily seeming too difficult, is a series of these very long, narrow passageways in order to get to the actual boss room. Now, in most games, when you have this type of setup, you can't just walk off the edge and go into the water. There's usually an invisible wall protecting you. That's not the case in this one. If you walk off the edge and go into the water, you lose a life and start back at the beginning of the area. So, since this room is rather large, and there is a decent amount of enemies, you definitely want to take your time slowly, especially when it's your first time navigating through it, in order to try to bypass as many enemies, take them out before walking on narrow passageways, or just say screw it and walk through the enemy and take the one hit of damage that you would take. Now, thankfully, they are a little bit lenient. As you can see, especially right there, my leg was kinda in the water, however I didn't fall off the platform. You are at least given that kind of leeway, even though your body's relatively big, especially compared to how narrow the passageway is. Now, I did gain some gun upgrades during the course of that, however I immediately lose them when I take some damage, like always. Now, here's a good spot because you can get full hover and full health right there. Now, obviously, we can't see that we have full hover at the time. We'll have to wait till we exit the dungeon after we defeat the boss. However, I do have full hover right now in the Sophia III. So here's boss time. Now, this is the first of 2 giant frog battles. Of course, we're trying to save our frog, Fred, from being giant and radioactive. However, we're doing battle with a giant frog here. Now, you can only hit him in the mouth, and only when it's open. And if you're not careful, he can do a lot of damage quickly. Now, I recommend using the grenades, but usually don't necessarily go right at him, face right in the front. You want to usually attack him from the sides. That's your easier and better bet. I went ahead and attacked him front up at the beginning, just to try to do a lot of quick damage to him, but it's more recommended to stay backwards. Now, he hops a couple times before stopping, and you can usually tell by his hopping where he's going to land, because he only moves a little bit each time that he does jump. After you blast him enough, we get our 4th item, the key, which will allow us to enter a few doors, and continue on to stage number 5. Now, real quick, you gotta be careful, I really didn't mention it before. When you are Jason on the main map area, when you're, obviously, you're very tiny, you can only fall a certain distance off of platforms to a lower platform without taking any damage. You jump down or drop too far, you lose health, or you will instantly lose a life if you fall too far down. So you have to be careful of that. However, there's not too many instances where I recommend even getting out of Sophia in order to try to explore on your own. There's only a few times in the game where it's necessary. One of those times where it's going to be necessary for a long period of time in order to get out of the tank and run around and just Jason on the map will actually be in our next level, stage number 5. Now, in that stage, because it's a water-based stage, we are going to have the opportunity of just going ahead and swimming in water to fight our enemies, and we won't have to worry about falling down any massive holes or off of massive platforms to other platforms below. We don't have to worry about that, obviously, underwater. Now, just like every stage so far we have done, we have to do a little bit of backtracking after we defeat the boss. Now, in this one, we'll be able to go straight from stage number 4 to 5. We don't have to go to any previous stages in order to get there. We don't have to do a mass backtrack for a good amount of time. Actually, after we complete stage number 6, the ice level, then we'll have to do another one of those big, massive backtracks. We do, however, have to backtrack a lot in this area. We actually have to go near the very beginning of stage number 4 to get to stage number 5. The room I went to in the big open room at the beginning, I went to the left side of it. I will now be going all the way to the right side of it, entering a separate door that will lead me to the stage 5. So go ahead, travel through this room, another one of these water-filled cave areas. As you can see, this is where I traveled to the left. Upwards was back where the stage began. However, I'm going to the right this time, and that leads to a door with a weird lock in front of it. Now, in order to get to the next one, you can see I can't necessarily reach that keyhole from this side, obviously. So we have to get out of our tank. We're going to travel up this very long ladder, and this is the only time, really, the platform falling really comes into the main gameplay. You have to be careful, take your time. It's not necessarily difficult by any means. However, if you try to make a giant fall to try to speed things up, you're going to end up losing a life. Fall down, open up the key lock. Once it's done once, it always is unlocked. And then we enter stage number 5, which has a great song, and it's also filled with water. Now, as you can see, you immediately sink to the bottom here. Our ship can't float in the water. So what we have to do is we're going to travel all the way down this giant area. Once we reach the bottom, we'll get actually out of the tank, and we'll have to go on a very long swimming voyage in order to complete the boss of this area, before then returning to our tank with the ability now to actually be able to move underwater in the tank. Now, most enemies in this area are pretty easy to take out overall, especially with the tank. However, once we get out of the tank and are just Jason floating in the water, it becomes more challenging to take out some of the enemies, mainly because you're in smaller, tighter quarters, like you can see right here. That enemy had a direct shot on me and is able to shoot at me as soon as it appears on screen, before I can really even notice sometimes that the enemy appeared. Now, all the enemies in these areas are pretty deadly and can take you out rather quickly, and it takes multiples of your own bullets in order to take them out. As Jason, we're going to slowly swim through these areas. Now, when you get here, you want to head downwards first, and head into the left side little, I guess a pipe or some kind of tube. It's not like one of the normal doors that we've been used to entering. Now, as we travel through this area, our main goal is going to be to enter that boss room. It is actually underwater, where it's located. We'll actually go up here, go inside this room, and at the end here is that room that's going to lead us to the boss room. Now, I don't have much health. Thankfully, though, I am right here, so I can gain some health inside this area. Now, this one is rather easy. You would think it'd be more challenging as we progress, but I find this little area, as well as the boss, easier to deal with than the one that we just dealt with in stage number 4. As we travel through, I'm taking my slow time, taking out some of the enemies as I go, to try to see if I can get any health from facing them, or just trying to dodge them all together. Sometimes it's better to dodge than trying to take out some of them one-on-one. And since they move relatively slowly, you can bypass most of them. But once you get to a more open area, then you can go ahead and take out a couple to gain some health back when you need it. As you can see, not very difficult of a top-down view area that we've seen. Some of the ones have been more challenging than this one, and they do drop a lot of health if you take the time to take them out. Now here we go with our next boss, our boss of stage number 5. Now underwater we have to deal with a giant enemy crab. We don't necessarily have to flip it over to hit its weak point for massive damage. However, it's a very easy battle. You run up to it at the very beginning of it, as you can see, and you can do a lot of damage. You hit it right in the jewel in the center of its head. Just start mashing the grenade button to do a lot of damage at first, and then back away when you start spitting out the bubbles. Once the bubbles begin, that's when the battle really becomes more difficult. You really want to focus on dodging the bubbles more than trying to do damage. Wait for a good clean opportunity before heading upwards in order to hit him with a grenade to take him out. Once he's defeated, we get our next item, which is our dive part, the ability to actually move underwater in the tank. Now, we have to, of course, backtrack through the areas that we swam through before. Have to be very careful because my health is relatively low. Try to take out some stray enemies when I do see them in order to try to gain some health back. Now, I haven't mentioned it before, however, if you play Blaster Master before a lot, you probably already know of it. However, if you've never really played the game enough, you may not know. There's actually a glitch with the grenades. Anytime you're fighting a boss battle, you can actually, when the grenade's exploding, you can massively press the pause button so that the grenade will actually do multiple hits even though you only fired the one grenade. It's a very easy and surefire way to defeat any boss in the game. It works on all the bosses.